Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 98. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
Jay, we are going to be getting into our review for Solo, a Star Wars story tonight. But before we get into the booze, the news, and the reviews, what the fuck were you up to this week, man?
Well, while doing some landscaping work at the parents' house, breaking my back, went down to the shore, Wildwood, to see my buddy. He's got a place down there until November. They rent it out. And it was good to see him, catch up with him. He lives down in Delaware nowadays. And then shot up to Ocean City, New Jersey, and saw my cousin and his family and a whole bunch of teenagers and testosterone and hormones raging through that fucking house.
All right. And this is your cousin that just graduated high school a few
well, he was there. It's my cousin is actually 47, but his kids and all that, okay. They're high school, college age and all that stuff, and they got their girlfriends there. And
it's not the environment you need, man.
My little goddaughter, she's got 4 of her little friends, or 8th, 9th grade or something like that. It was just kind of funny, and then having his neighbors at home that literally live across the street from him at home, live 2 blocks away in Ocean City, New Jersey. They can't leave each other. So they came over and we had dinner, and then I left after that. And then the next day, Sunday, man, I fucking treated myself to a Solo.
Okay.
And a massage.
Oh, all right.
Because I was sore as shit. Because when I was down there, I also went for a long run with my buddy along the shore. And
man, so
I said with the landscaping, my back was sore as fuck.
You got the high thigh massage.
Oh,
right?
I got
for your sore legs.
I went to the Asian high thigh massage place.
I would expect no less.
No less. No. No less.
Did they put the latex gloves on you before they gave you the happy ending? Did they put the latex gloves on?
Extra oil.
Oh, so wrong. I can't get a massage. I don't know what it is.
A lot of people are like that, man. I am definitely not that way. I can get into it. I can relax. A lot of people just tense up. They can't get into it.
Yeah, and it's not even it's not a comforting
thing.
I don't want some guy touching me. I just don't want anybody touching me. I just don't like that level of physical contact. Even sometimes getting that close to Lauren, it's unsettling. I don't like it. I don't know what it is. I'm not a cuddler. I don't like to cuddle. Me and Lauren don't sit close to each other on the couch. She doesn't put her head on my shoulder. It's just not who I am. I don't know whether it's something she would want.
It's an animalistic relationship. It's you guys gotta go to your quarters, you do your thing, and then when it's time for mating, it's
I don't know if it's even quite like that. You're adding far more excitement. You're adding far more excitement than there really is, man.
Well, that's married life.
Nope, that's just the way I've always been. It's just me.
Oh god. But so other than that, Memorial Day was nice and low key, David. A little picnic at my other cousin's house, and it was nice.
So I on Saturday night went to a wedding, Jay. My little cousin Eddie got married. It's me and Lauren have so many weddings this year. It seems like every other weekend there's another wedding to go to, and we had a lot of fun. Lauren loves to dance, so we danced the night away, man. To some of the. Just
you two are fun to watch when you're dancing.
Wedding music is just the worst. It's always the fucking worst. It's kind
of the point.
It's the weirdest hodgepodge of songs and stuff. Why does every wedding now for some reason have to play Africa? Yeah, the song.
It's not coming to me right now. I don't know why.
I can't believe you don't know the song Africa from Toto, man. Is it coming back to you now?
It definitely.
For some reason,
has.
This song is all over the place in weddings now, and I can't quite figure out why.
I guess because of the build up when it gets to the anthem, like it gets a little bit more fun.
I guess but
it's a weird song.
It's
right?
not like it's one of those songs where it's like, do you dance to this? Like, do you slow dance to this?
I know.
Can you jump around to it? But like every wedding I've been to this year has played this song, and I have no clue why.
I think you know what it is. It needs a really good DJ, which you probably didn't have, to cut it up where all this slow stuff is very minimal, and you just get to the anthem where everybody just gets bonkers and goes dances around.
Yeah, you're talking about like an actual DJ.
An actual DJ.
Yeah, no, this was a guy with his iTunes like playing.
Gotcha. This part. Chicks love it, man.
Anyway, yeah, but yeah, for some reason,
I don't know why.
For some reason, Toto is always playing. But we had a great time. My aunts are just absolutely nuts. At one point, they were both on their backs on the floor, like just.
Oh, Jesus.
But we had a good time. Some of the best watered down drinks you could ever have. I went to the bar and I was like, "Can I get a mojito?" And they're like, "Oh, we can't make those." And I was like, "Can I get a Moscow Mule?" And the guy like gave me like right after I asked for a mojito, he gave me a look like, "Seriously? No, I can't make that." I was like, "Can I have a Jack and a Diet Coke?" And he goes, "I can do that." And I was like, "Yeah, you can mix two things together. Thanks."
Normally that's the case with weddings. It's minimal selection.
I went to a different bartender and I asked, and he didn't have ginger beer, but he was able to give me ginger ale, some ginger extract, some like ginger root, and then
wow,
and then some rum with it. And I was
like, working for that tip.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, he tried, dude, with a lime on top, and it tasted fine. It wasn't perfect, but it tasted fine. I was like, yeah, give him the $20, yeah.
Nice.
But we had a good time there. And then on Sunday, I got together with Rob from the Fan Film Boys, and me and him recorded several episodes of Fan Film Boys. So look forward to those coming out.
Definitely.
We had a ton of fun doing that. And then me and Lauren went out and we saw Solo. Can't remember whether that was Saturday or Sunday. I don't really remember.
Saturday.
All right. So Saturday, before we went to the wedding, me and Lauren had saw Solo. I also got into watching a few things, Jay. It was Memorial Day today, as we are recording, and I have a tradition on Memorial Day. I have to watch all of Band of Brothers in one sitting, and I did.
Still haven't seen it.
You still haven't seen Band of Brothers?
I know,
dude. It's
terrible.
It's crazy watching that because like I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. And Band of Brothers has been out since 2001, so it's 17 years old this year.
Wow,
it's really and so it obviously the guy who plays Dick Winters, you would know him from Millions, and he was also in Homeland. But then it also has Ron Livingston, and then it also has
a lot of guys who are famous.
Simon Pegg is in a couple of the earlier episodes. He barely has a speaking role. Who else is there? Michael Fassbender is in it as well. Barely has a speaking role. And then someone who you would barely even recognize because he's so skinny in it is Tom Hardy is also in it.
Oh, that's right. He was a skinny little shit back in the day.
So, but like I have so much.
He's like a wiry pretty boy kind of guy.
I have so much fun watching that until I get to episode 9. The episode is entitled "Why We Fight," and I always just turn into a big crying baby in that episode because that's the episode where where Easy Company comes across the concentration camp, and I lose it every single time. And it's such a great series, and if you're like Jay and you haven't checked out Band of Brothers, you really should. And there's no better time than around summertime, Memorial Day and 4th of July and everything like that. If you don't have Band of Brothers on Memorial Day, go for Saving Private Ryan. I'm sure it's on somewhere. Jay, what were you up to? What were you watching this week?
Not too much, Dave. I actually started a mini series on Showtime called Patrick Melrose, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch. It is, I don't want to talk about it until the final, like till it's finished and up and everything like that. We're, kind of halfway through the mini series, so I don't want to dive into it too much. But so far, it's kind of an interesting stuffy study of character, acting, very stuffy upper class country Englishman people.
Where does Cumberbatch get the time, man? Between
I don't know.
Marvel movies.
I really don't know. And he's delivering a hell of a performance so far. He's a heroin addict, really, just an all around drug addict, former drug addict as of right now. Spoiler, but no. So, he has a troubled background with his family, but he's going through some things. And I will just give you an update in a couple weeks when this series is all finished up about how it pans out. But it's got a nice little interesting, hard-hitting drama aspect to it with a lot of good characters and actors involved. Also, in theaters, I did pop over and saw Disobedience. This is a weirdly kind of quiet, small drama that stars Rachel Weisz, Rachel McAdams, and a lot of people know his face but don't really know his name, Alessandro Nivola. He's kind of done a bunch of little weird things. He's been in like a whole bunch of random movies that you've probably seen. Just go look him up. Anyway, this pretty much stars the three of them in a very Orthodox Jewish community where it's very, very conservative, very strict. Rachel Weisz gets shunned from her community. Her father was a very pronounced kind of figure in that community, goes away for a long time, comes back.
I think the word you're looking for was prominent.
Prominent, sorry.
Pronounced.
I know, pronounced. What the fuck?
As you pronounce Rachel Weisz's name wrong.
Comes back and her two friends are now married.
Okay.
Little do you know, the two women apparently had a little bit of an affair back in the day during the teenage years.
This sounds like a super boring fucking movie.
It's kind of boring.
Okay. Why are we talking about it then?
I'm briefly talking about it.
Do you recommend it, Jay?
I don't recommend this at all, but it's still well crafted. It's just so boring.
As well crafted as Masters of the Universe, which we'll be doing next week for our movie cocktail.
But the sex scene was kind of hot and in a weird, kinky, but yet not like overly erotic kind of way.
Don't dodge the question, Jay. As well put together as Masters of the Universe.
Oh, this is way better than that.
I don't think so. It does not sound like it.
Completely different kind of movie.
And then for me, I watched a ton because it's a holiday weekend. I did not feel like going anywhere. I don't like going out on holiday weekends. There's too many people out, too many people doing things. You can't go down to the shore.
A lot.
Yeah, that's not something that interests me. I have no interest in cramming myself onto a beach when the water is 50 some degrees,
67.
Yeah, and outside is 90 some degrees, so you can't even if you go into the water, you're risking hypothermia to cool off. No, thank you. No, none of that interests me at all. So I stayed inside. I watched a Netflix original film. It was called Ibiza, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, just looking at it, it's one of those girl films where it's like all the girls get together. They go to Barcelona for a business trip, and then they, shenanigans and hilarity ensues. It's kind of in that vein of Bridesmaids and stuff like that. But I think what really drew me to it was the fact that Jillian Jacobs was in it, and I absolutely love her. I loved her in Community. I really enjoy the Netflix show Love that she's in, and I enjoyed her here too. I wasn't crazy about really anything else that was going on in the film, but I had a few laughs with it. It wasn't a bad way to spend a Friday night watching it. And the guy that she's going after, the main love interest in it that makes this the romantic comedy, was Richard Madden. You might remember him,
definitely,
as the Gray Wolf.
He is a stud,
Rob Stark, and that's what me and Lauren were saying the whole time.
He's a really good looking guy.
He is. He is a really good looking guy.
I think I saw he was some kind of prince or something like that in a Disney movie. He played some kind of prince or something like that. I don't know what movie it was, but he was very good looking. I'm like, wow, I don't remember recalling this in Game of Thrones.
He played Prince Charming in Cinderella.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, but yeah, he is, and he's getting better looking as he gets older, right? Like when you go back and you watch him as Rob Stark,
he is that kind of guy that probably would just get better and better in age, like George Clooney or something like that, And
I'm getting ready, Jay. Pretty soon, since the summer's here and just about everything is off the air and a lot of stuff's getting canceled, it's time to start my yearly Game of Thrones rewatch. So I'm going to be getting back into watching the entire series leading up to next June when the new season drops, the final season drops. So I get to watch Rob Stark die all over again. I also watched a indie darling that me and Lauren watched together. Amy Adams and Emily Blunt, Sunshine Cleaning with Alan Arkin.
Yes.
And I saw that movie back in 2008, and I just really enjoy it. It's just one of those,
Yeah.
it's one of those indie films that balances its comedy and its drama like really well. And it's about two sisters who start a crime scene cleanup company, and a little bit of the shenanigans that goes into it, but then also the drama that comes with coming
Family
into,
ties, yeah.
yeah, but also the drama that comes into coming into someone's life after a tragedy has happened, and kind of cleaning it up and making the mess better in a way while cleaning up their own lives. It's a metaphor, Jay.
I know. No, I know. It's very interesting that these two girls got involved with this role, and I really do applaud them for it. It's definitely a movie that I saw a long time ago. I would definitely revisit it just to refresh myself with it, because I think I did enjoy it. I do remember most of the movie for the most part, but the emotional hooks I would like to see and revisit and see if it kind of stays with me. But I do love the premise. It's something that's, dark, but they do it in a light enough way where it's very watchable.
I love Emily Blunt in this era, in this this Devil Wears Prada, like Sunshine Cleaning type era. It was before she like really blew up, right? It's before she did Live, Die, Repeat.
No, I was all about her from pretty much day one.
Yeah.
I was definitely a big fan of hers.
And that's really it, man. I really didn't. I mean, I did watch a docu-series. I did watch Real Genius, which is a Duplass Brothers production.
Yes.
These dudes are like motherfucking
everywhere.
They're everywhere, dude. Everything I see, like so many of the movies that are these like small.
They might have a quiet like production deal with Netflix.
Oh, I'm sure they do, but it only seems like it's for docu-series, because like all the films they've done and TV shows, they have also a deal with HBO, because the Mark Duplass TV series Togetherness was on HBO, and I believe he has another series that's Barry is also a Duplass Brothers production. So they have deals
motherfuckers getting paid
with HBO,
doing indie stuff
with Netflix. And speaking of Netflix, Jay, I think that's the perfect segue to get ourselves over into news. All right, Jay, with that segue, I decided to get the news started off with one that you shared with me. The market value of Netflix is now higher than Disney's and Comcast. Now, a lot of articles are saying that it's higher. Other articles are saying it's nearly higher. Either way, it is rivaling that of Disney and Comcast. What do you think of that, Jay? How big of a juggernaut is Netflix? But they don't really have big production.
Mind blown, dude.
But they don't have big production. So
I just don't get it. Like, I had no idea it had this much money coming in from this kind of simple service.
The money's coming in.
It's mind blowing to me.
The money's coming in, but it's barely going out. They don't spend a lot on their productions.
Unless it's Marco Polo.
Right. Well, yeah, but that got canceled, right? They didn't.
Of course, because nobody fucking saw it.
And that was from the creator of Spartacus.
Who would see that? I had zero interest in that show. I didn't give it one inkling of time.
No.
What was the purpose of that show? The trailers did nothing. There was no stars in it. It just looked like
that show
a shitload of money.
That show had a purpose. There are successful shows on other networks that are period pieces. Like HBO had The Tudors. History Channel has
to spend a fortune on that thing.
History Channel had Vikings. Like there were things out there that were successful, that were period pieces that involved famous people, right? And it's funny that once they got rid of Marco Polo, they went with The Crown, which wound up being a far better, period piece, but also, involving historical characters.
Right.
And it was, and that show's fantastic. And they spend a far less amount of money on that than they do on Marco Polo, on big elaborate battles and stuff like that. Plus Marco Polo was when they first started doing their own producing their own content. So at that point, they
trial and error period.
Right.
Yeah.
They hadn't gotten into the more cheap sensibility of it now, and I say cheap, it's not a negative thing, but they're all about not spending a whole lot of money, and it's coming in. And
smart business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, technically it is. And obviously, like we said before, it gives a lot of the creative power, control, and influence to those people, not the studio.
And the best part is, their net worth may be getting as large as Disney's and Comcast. They have fucking deals with both of them too. Netflix shows are available on Comcast Xfinity. So you can get
Sure.
Netflix shows through there as well, especially if you subscribe to Netflix. So you don't even need to have a device that carries a Netflix app. You can still get Netflix and just watch it through your Xfinity box now. And then they obviously have deals with Disney because they're carrying tons of Disney movies on their streaming service.
Yeah.
And they also have the Marvel Netflix series that are out there. The Marvel, Marvel Defenders and everything.
That deal in particular is going to go sour soon, especially once Disney's.
But they still
service
have
comes
those.
out.
They still have those shows. They
Right.
can continue producing those shows. Disney will go off and do shows elsewhere as they have, but they still have those shows, and they still have those shows to be marketable. So
Yeah, it's true.
it's interesting. It's very interesting, and it goes back to something you and I talked about in our very first episode of Super Movie Brothers when we talked about the changing the changing ways that people are taking in content, and to see a streaming service doing as well as two of the biggest production companies in the world is pretty astounding.
It really is.
And speaking of production companies and all this money, Jay, Disney might be being outbid for Fox.
Well, they are going to be.
Yeah. So
Apparently.
so Fox, so Comcast is offering 20th Century Fox the same amount that Disney did. The difference is Disney offered it in stock options, and Comcast is offering a cash deal. So they are contesting Disney's bid.
Big difference.
It's a big difference. It's big. It's money in the pocket.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Straight up. That's fucking balls right there. That's
Talk about coming for Disney's fucking throat, man.
Ooh. Yeah.
But that ruins everybody's big plan where everyone's like, yes, X-Men, Avengers, same universe. No.
True. Well, yeah, but at the same time, it kind of makes things a little bit interesting because Comcast, they have balls. Like they would do whatever the fuck they want to do with that kind of properties. I mean, yes, you're not going to get the marriage, but maybe they'll make a deal, make some marriages. You know, like the way they're doing with Sony and Disney with Spider-Man. You never know.
All right, Jay, what news stories do you got?
Well, this is kind of interesting. Michael Bay goes to Netflix of all things.
Yeah, I saw that, man.
He's going to be making 6 Underground with Ryan Reynolds confirmed to star. So this is surprising. Mr. Blockbuster himself, big screen epic monster man.
I wonder if the next
small screen.
If the next iteration that Deadpool is in, whatever movie that is, if they're going to be making fun of Ryan Reynolds for signing a deal that involved Michael Bay.
I hope so.
Because Michael Bay, I mean, he's not like a dirty. I mean, he's a dirty word for film fans. You know, a lot of us look at the Transformers films and go, ugh. But other than that, I mean, he's been a very profitable and somewhat prolific director in his time, especially in that late 90s, early 2000s period. So,
yeah. So, you know, this writer to the property has done Deadpool, Zombieland, stuff like that. So it's got to have some kind of comedic take to it, but the plot as a whole has been completely under wraps. But I do find it interesting. It's got to be a very money heavy oriented deal for these stars to get involved with this project. And obviously I think it has some kind of element of obvious action and comedy elements to it.
I think this is great.
Right up their wheelhouse.
This is great for Michael Bay, and it's great for Netflix. Michael Bay gets to make the type of movies he wants. He doesn't have to worry about box office draw or anything like that, which has been dwindling for him in the years to come. He gets a little bit of star power behind it, and really all Netflix has to do is spend money on some explosions and on Ryan Reynolds' paycheck. And that's it. And that's really, I guess, which winds up not being a whole lot.
And it sounds like an action comedy with those guys involved with it. Huge. That's big money.
I'm picturing something along the lines of
a lot of people are going to watch that.
I'm picturing something along the lines of like the Hitman's Bodyguard. Like that's
but better.
That's probably going to be I don't know if it's going to be better, but the Hitman's Bodyguard was not good by any stretch of imagination, but it wasn't bad.
I heard they're making a sequel.
Oh, of course they are.
I did.
All right, Jay, this is a follow-up story for something that you and I have discussed before. Bond 25. Remember the distribution rights were up in the air, the contract was up, and people were bidding for it. Someone's won. Someone outbid the rest of them, and Universal now holds the distribution rights for the James Bond, for the next James Bond film.
It's crazy. It's so weird to me. Seeing
that it's not MGM.
I mean, good for Universal.
Right.
I mean, they've been spending money lately. Obviously, the whole MonsterVerse, the Dark Universe has been a failed venture, even though I hear, from the rumblings underground that it's not quite 100% dead. Maybe they're just taking a little breather from that. But either way, they're trying. They're desperate. They're scrapping. They're trying to find something. They're trying to find some kind of lead into the future for them to make money, and it has some kind of strong property and strong, project to have to build forward to the future. And Bond is 100% something that's going to be in a formidable future forever. I mean, we'll see what angle they go with, if they want to change things up. Yeah, good for Universal. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have up their sleeves with this property.
Well, it's just distribution rights. They really have nothing else to do with it other than making the money off the distribution of it and the marketing for it. That's it.
Well, hopefully they do it well.
And a Sony news story, Liam Neeson, his action days may be behind him, as he says, where he's done with action films, but he will be in a comedy that stars Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, bring that Thor Ragnarok crew back together. They are going to be, Liam Neeson has been the latest cast in Sony's reboot or continuation. No one knows really yet what it is, but Men in Black.
Bring it on.
Yeah. I get the feeling Liam Neeson's casting, it's either he is going to be the Tommy Lee Jones character or
the director or something like that.
Yeah, he's going to be Rip. Yeah. He's going to be Rip Torn's character.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm leaning towards that, but I'm really excited. That's kind of fun. I mean, this is going to be great. I'm excited.
You are?
Yeah, I kind of am.
I'm not, because in my mind I'm looking at it and I'm seeing
it could be a cash grab film, but
I'm seeing what Ghostbusters 2016 was, and I'm thinking Men in Black is going to be very similar to that.
Don't say that.
It's going to be very similar to that.
Trust me, it was on my mind.
It's not going to be enough to outright hate it.
I have to be optimistic.
It won't be enough to outright hate it, but it'll be something where you're just like, I didn't love it either.
Right,
it was nothing great or good.
Yeah, but I have good news, Dave, about another project.
All right, what's that?
The Logan director,
James Mangold,
director
of Logan, Wolverine, and wait, he directed more, Jay.
Oh, he's directed a lot more.
3:10 to Yuma,
goddamn right,
and Walk the Line.
Yes.
So what's he going to be directing next?
Writing and directing Boba Fett.
All right, now do you think this is a good fit?
Kind of do.
I think it's a good fit for him to be directing.
Character.
So here's my question.
Don't you think?
Here's my question about why this film exists. And we'll probably get into the Boba Fett film more during our solo review, and especially in spoilers and Easter eggs there. But what is the point of having a movie about Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett looked cool in that outfit. He never really did anything badass in the films. So like, if we get this film, how do you have a central figure like Boba Fett and he doesn't take off the helmet? And if he does take off the helmet, who plays him? Because the guy who played Jango Fett, which Boba Fett's a clone of Jango Fett, Tamora Morrison, is old, so it can't be him.
Carl Urban. He's got experience doing it already.
Yeah, so you just have him never take off the mask. Yeah. I could work with that. But then they also have to have a Kiwi accent. It has to have a New Zealand accent because Tamora Morrison, who already played him, has that. Or you have to find another Maori to play him. Then there's also Daniel Logan, who played young Boba Fett, which you could never do him because he hasn't really done anything since Attack of the Clones. He's done a few episodes of the Star Wars cartoons. It's just, I don't understand why this film is being made. I don't understand why there's a Boba Fett film coming out, but at the same time, James Mangold behind it, I like that.
He obviously has the power to go to them and like, look, give me this option. Let me go and write something. And if it comes out well, you like it, I love it, I want to direct it.
Also, where does this take place? Is this post Sarlacc pit?
Who knows?
Or because then you're getting into an era that's mostly unexplored in the films. Everything's that's post, like directly after Return of the Jedi. Not so much like, I know that the new series are all after it.
Pretty much around the same time, they also kind of sort of confirmed that there was going to be an Obi-Wan movie.
Right. Now, so like that and all the Star Wars stories seem to be filling in the gaps between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. So if you have a Boba Fett film, do you reuse the actors that you just had in Solo and bring them into that? Because, well, like I said, we're going to probably get more into this Boba Fett film for what's to come with Star Wars in our Easter eggs for Solo.
You will.
But I will. But for me, I look at a Boba Fett film and I think I know exactly why they're doing it. They're doing it because it's a hugely popular character and fans love him.
And you do too.
But you have to think, who are you servicing with that character? Because you're not going to be servicing
It's
the
not
character.
marketable.
Right.
It's not like Han Solo.
You're not going to be servicing that character at all because that character
This needs to be like a dialed down $60 million movie or something like that.
It needs to be a Western, which is probably why James Mangold's going to be doing it, because it needs to be a Western.
And he can do that.
So we'll talk more about that film and its possibilities when we get into our Solo spoilers section. And then, Jay, let's get over to your indie corner, man.
Yes, definitely.
Now that Jay's poured himself a bourbon neat, he's got his ironic suspenders on, his little bow tie, and his square frame glasses. He's going to look down upon all of you as he talks about his little indie ditty. So, Jay, tell everybody how superior you are for knowing about this little indie darling that they should all see.
The Monster.
All right, so The Monster. It's an interesting title. There's a whole lot I can do with this, but I have decided that this would be a film that is about a guy who has just recently gotten off drugs and he's going to detox himself. And as he's detoxing, he has hallucinations, and hallucinations are of the monster that used to live under his bed when he was a little kid. Then after days of sweating out the drugs and coming back, he realizes, Jay, that this monster is fucking real.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then he winds up going into the monster's realm, just like Monsters, Inc., but from an adult's perspective.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's deep.
It is. Did I also mention that the monster looks exactly like his dad's dick? It's really weird.
But how would he know that?
Because he saw his mom and dad getting it on once, man, and it scarred him for life. It caused him to go into taking drugs.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. It's exactly how it would go.
It's just a natural course of, circumstances.
Yeah.
So no, this movie is a 2016 horror thriller written and directed by Brian Bertino, who has previously written The Strangers. Remember The Strangers, Dave?
The original one. They had a sequel that came out this year that I didn't see.
Well, he wrote both of them.
Okay.
But the original one is the only one I saw. I never saw the second one. I heard
there was
not
also
as strong.
There was also a foreign horror film that was very similar to The Strangers. So The Strangers is actually a remake already, and now they've remade that remake.
But I did like The Strangers quite a bit, actually. Zoe Kazan, our girl Zoe Kazan, she plays a mother who is just a flat-out alcoholic mess. And this is one of her best performances.
All right, so already my
seen.
synopsis was pretty close.
Yeah. Who's practically being looked after by her whip-smart young daughter. And on their way
Did you say whip-smart?
Whip-smart.
Whip-star, whip-star, whip-star.
Our fans would know what the hell that was. But anyway, getting on to it. They are on their way to go to her father's house, the daughter's father's house, and they take a shortcut. During the way, they go down this kind of a unused road in the middle of the woods, and they strike a wolf, killing it, wrecking their car, and then suddenly they're stranded in the woods, and they're hunted by, yes, a monster.
Oh,
this movie,
I love werewolves.
I'm telling you, Dave, this movie is shockingly fucking good. Anybody who likes horror, anybody who likes some kind of taut little fun, really well done, low budget thriller horror element with a simple concept, well acted, watch this movie. This is a little hidden gem, I think. I really, really do. I really stand behind this.
Is this anywhere that anyone can stream it right now?
It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime.
All right. Yeah, I would definitely like to check this out. It sounds a little bit like Wolf. Do you remember Wolf with Jack Nicholson? He hits a wolf. He goes to help it off the side of the road, gets bit by it, and starts turning into a werewolf monster.
Nah, I never saw that one. But this is well reviewed, at least on Rotten Tomatoes. If you guys give a shit about that website or not, 80%. So, like I said, definitely check it out. I think if you guys are into this kind of genre,
it's definitely up my alley because
I'm gonna reach out to Justin from Epic Film Guys and see if he's seen it and talk to him about it as well, because I think that's right up his alley.
Awesome. So coming up next, me and Jay got to get into our beers, and of course we have to do one final Star Wars drunk scene to tie into our review for Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now it's time to get into the beers, but before we do that, we gotta drop a line to our sponsor, Blowfish. Head over to www.forhangovers.com and use the promo code SMBFish to get your 15% off of this hangover miracle cure. It is the only hangover cure that is FDA approved. And you just drop these 2 tablets into 8 to 12 ounces of water, let them fizzle out, drink that water down in about 15 minutes. Your hangover starts to feel a whole lot better. So make sure that you head over to www.forhangovers.com. That's FOR hangovers. Use your promo code SMBFish. Now, before we get into our review of Solo: A Star Wars Story, we got this week's drunk scene. And of course, Jay, it comes again from a galaxy far, far away.
Let's bring it.
The mighty Jabba asks why he must pay 50,000.
Lotto.
Because he's holding a thermal detonator. Jabba offers a sum of 35, and I do suggest you take it.
Lotto.
He agrees.
All right, and that is this week's drunk scene. Jay, I had another drunk scene in mind that I really wanted to do, and for some reason, I just couldn't find the audio clip for it. It was that one where Han Solo, because I wanted to do Han Solo.
You get
obviously.
part of the clip.
Yeah.
Not all of it.
Exactly. But yeah, I wanted to do the scene where Han and Rey and Finn walk into Maz Kanata's castle, and she, from across the room, without even like skipping a beat, just like looks over right at him and is just, Han Solo!
And the place goes quiet.
Where's my boyfriend? Chewie's watching the Falcon. I like that Wookiee. But unfortunately, I had to go with Jabba's Palace, which is one of the other few times that Han Solo's at least involved, right? Leia is there playing the Bosch bounty hunter, and she is there to rescue Han. That's what they all come there for, to rescue Han. And it's one of the first times we get to really like see Jabba and see him interact with somebody, which is a lot of fun. And she's there to turn Chewbacca the Wookiee over. So get a lot of Chewbacca in that Solo movie that we just watched, which we'll be talking a lot about, which it might have been my favorite part was Chewbacca. More so. In fact, there was a lot of parts that were my favorite, that were like big parts that I really liked. Not many of them really involved Han Solo all that much.
Yes. Chewie was fantastic. And I had a feeling, we talked about it before, that he might be stealing the movie away from Han Solo himself, and he kind of did.
All right, well, we will talk more about that coming up when we review Solo: A Star Wars Story. But Jay, we got 2 beers that we're going to be reviewing. So why don't you start off with the beer that you got there, man?
I have Lancaster Hop Dog IPA.
Are you sure it's not Hop Hog? Because there's a picture of it.
Oh my God! Thank you very much. I guess I just assumed. Hop Hog IPA. This one is an interesting little beer. It is actually still strong-ish at 7% alcohol by volume, but it has a heavy note of malt flavor profile from the nose and the body of the beer itself, with a double dry hop going on to try to balance it out to give a bit of a refreshing flavor to it. And still, the malt overpowers it a little bit more. And It's very drinkable. I mean, it's a very easy to drink beer. It's just heavily malty. It doesn't. I kind of was hoping it had a little bit more of a bite to it, a little bit more of a hop bite to it, but it doesn't. And it's got a little, it's just straight up malt and a little bit of hop. There's not much to it. There's not too much great flavors going on with it. I still think it's okay. It's a very drinkable beer, especially for 7%. I think this grade is going to be tricky for me because I feel like I want to give it a 3.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I like Lancaster Brewing Company. They never really have anything fantastic, but that's around along the line of all their beers. I think you'd really like their milk stout if you haven't had that before.
I have not.
So I am drinking the Harpoon Brewing Company's IPA. It's entitled the Hoppy Floral Crisp Indian Pale Ale. There's something that I always notice about Harpoon. They have the most unimaginative, bottle style. All of them look exactly the same. It's just very
classic
looking. You know what I mean? It's just very, very, very bare bones, everything.
It's bare bones, but not in a noticeable way. It's still appealing to the eye to purchase. It's not a pleasant.
I'm just saying, it just looks boring. It
does look very boring.
Even
the
more
color,
even more boring than your because at least your Miller, Miller does the old school
the subtlety of marketing, David.
Right, and
yes.
Coors does the little stocky pony bottles and stuff like that. That stuff is still more visually appealing than what this looks like.
I know. I completely agree.
So this is 5.9% alcohol by volume, and it is hoppy. It's a little bit floral. It is crisp. It is all those things, Jay. But what it isn't is what it advertises. And right here on the bottle, it says, our IPA is crisp, balanced interpretation of the classic style. This is best enjoyed with friends. This is best not enjoyed at all. It's just not that good. It's really not that good. It's nothing to even wow about. I mean, I'm going to drink it because I have to, and I can't just dump this beer down the drain. But
I mean, you could.
It's nothing. It's just really nothing special. Everything from the look of the bottle to
how strong is it?
Even the way they 5.9%. So
okay.
Even the way they market themselves, right down to the taste of their beer, it's all extremely, stealing a word from Jay, banal. Everything about it is just bleh, whatever. It's just it's just there, and that's the way I feel when it's in my mouth. It's just meh. It isn't hoppy enough. It's not floral enough, and it's not crisp enough. It's just everything
underdeveloped, essentially.
Well, yeah, and I think maybe that might be something that it wants to be. Maybe it wants to be that type of craft beer that your average person could enjoy. Because I'm sure someone could pick this up who isn't even a big fan of IPAs and go, yeah, no, that's not bad. Yeah, I can handle that. You know what I mean? I think maybe that's where they want to be. They want to be this middle of the row, and that might be their wheelhouse, and that might be the secret to their success. But it's not the secret to my palate. I'm giving this a 2.
Wow. Okay. I will remember that. That's higher than a 2 for me.
No, it's just it's so boring.
You would hate my beer.
Yeah, I've had your beer before. I don't like your beer.
Yeah.
Let's move on and let's get over and review Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yes.
So you want to make a difference?
Yeah.
Trust me, you're gonna love it.
You gotta be a pilot. Scams on the street since I was 10.
You're off to something. Is it revenge?
Big shot gangster putting together crew. You in?
Come with us. You're in this life for good.
Everything you heard about me is true. Might wanna buckle up, baby. Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine. I got a really good feeling about that.
You know how to fly.
I'm 190 years old? You look great.
Jay, for the first time since 2015, Disney is releasing a Star Wars film, and it's not in the month of December, which I find interesting in that I'm not sure if that has something to do with all the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on with this, with firing directors and bringing in Ron Howard, or whether this is where they always intended on putting it out. It's interesting because this film is underperforming. It is not doing as well as Disney would have hoped. So far, it has made somewhere close to $85 million for its opening weekend, Memorial Day weekend, but that is still shy of the, I believe it was $120 million that Disney was looking for it in its opening weekend.
So this is definitely something not that much of a surprise to me, really, to be honest, just because I feel like the marketing has been little underwhelming, and I don't think you and I have overly enjoyed the trailers, and I feel like a lot of people feel the same way.
Jay, here's how underwhelming it was for me. I didn't see a Star Wars movie on the Thursday night at, before its actual release day.
Yes.
That's how I waited until Saturday to see it.
And that's shocking.
Yeah, because any other Star Wars film, even Rogue One, I was there the night before at 8 p.m. seeing it because I didn't want any spoilers. I didn't worry about spoilers for this one because I knew no one was going to be really talking about it. We don't have a spoiler chat going on Twitter. We're not dissecting this film. I don't even see a lot of people really talking about it on social media.
There's no excitement with this property. That's the thing.
Because you have to wonder, with an origin film for a character that we all know a lot about from the films, this film is for who and for what? Who was this film serving in the end? And it is what you have to ask yourself.
A little bit of everybody. That's the thing. And I think that's what the interesting thing about this property is because it is a property. It's very much a product piece, and it's the most product piece of a Star Wars movie that they've ever produced. It's just very much a serviceable product film that is a fun little action movie, and it's easy for the mainstream audience to follow and get along behind it, along with some Star Wars fans.
I think everything about it, from the marketing, it just looked very, very generic. It was going to be this guy who is very close to what you want him to be, but never quite gets there, with his furry companion meeting all the people that you would expect him to meet, who we know were involved in his past, and going on a simple adventure,
a roguish adventure,
and it's exactly what we got.
Yeah,
and it's exactly like it's whatever you think it's going to be in your head. It's exactly like that.
But did you enjoy watching it?
I enjoy.
That's the thing. We knew what we were going to get ourselves into.
Yeah.
It's just, if you can leave that at the door, sit down and enjoy what you saw on screen. Right. That's what we're talking about right now.
I would say this film is better than the prequels, not as good as anything else that Disney has made since it's taken over. So it's definitely the worst film of this new generation.
I think more than anything, people are going to be debating if this is better or worse than Rogue One.
Oh, it's worse. It's not as good as Rogue One. Rogue One was...
Some people think it is.
It was not as good as Rogue One. Not at all.
I'm just saying, because I've already seen that on Twitter with rankings and such. It's a little bit of a debate now, it seems like. So it's going to be interesting going forward, seeing how people argue back and forth about that in regard. I also agree. You're right. It's not as good as Rogue One, but I was surprisingly pleased with what I saw. I enjoyed my time with this movie. I definitely was expecting a lot. I had very low expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised from what I got.
So here's my problem with this film. It's my big problem with it, is that it doesn't so much service Han Solo's character in any way. He has no major development. He has no major character arc. He has no revelation that happens to him that leads us to where we would expect him to be by the time we get into A New Hope. It does none of that. It doesn't do any. What it does is it tells me how he got the cool things that made him Han Solo.
Yeah.
It tells me where he got his gun, which actually looked cooler before Beckett broke it down and gave it to him. It was actually like a sniper rifle before then. And he's like, yeah, here's a pistol. It told me how he got his awesome furry best friend, who it winds up being the shining light in this film, along with Lando. And
how he met Lando.
And not Solo. How he met his roguish friend who turned him into the Empire. How he met Lando. And we kind of see why Lando would have turned him over to the Empire. So we get even more character development for Lando than we do for Han right there. there. And then we also find out how he got the fastest ship in the galaxy, the best hunk of junk that did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs if you round down. And that's what we got. But what we didn't get was Han Solo
and a love interest
doing anything meaningful. But I would say this film was peppered with so many Easter eggs that were probably only picked up by true hardened Star Wars fans.
Good, because I'm ready to hear them because I don't know anything.
And we'll get into the ones that I picked up. And believe me, there's a ton of them. There's videos on YouTube you can check out. But these are the ones that while I was watching it, I noticed, and we'll get into them later on in the spoiler section. But that was my big problem with it, was that, and it wasn't like Alden Ehrenreich was that bad. He wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed him. I liked him.
I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't like him in the trailer the way they cut it together. But in the movie, he kind of nailed it, I think.
But I did feel like there was he lacked a cadence that Han Solo had. I still felt like, even from the trailer, I felt like that was lacking. It was still lacking here, but
there was only one line delivered that I didn't quite like. But
I still enjoyed him as the character, and I bought him as the character, which was an important sell that they had to do.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed most of the story. I did feel like the first act was its slowest. It dragged on a little bit, and there was a lot of origin things that were going on in there that I didn't need.
It wasn't necessary. Not
it was
at all.
not necessary at all. They definitely could have truncated that story.
It was a long movie. I felt the wait as well. Like, it was 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it got a little lengthy for me. I wasn't in any kind of rush. I just felt like a little bogged down because I think the movie played out like sequence. It was not. It just kind of got a little.
There was
only
only one scene that really made me go, "Oh, you're fucking kidding me, really?" Like, there's only one scene that made me go, God, that sucks. Like, that's so bad. And we'll get into that later on in the spoiler section. But ultimately, I still thought that they crafted a fun story. It was a fun ride, and that's exactly what I think they were really setting out to do with this. Especially when you hire like Ron Howard, they were just setting out for it to be fun. It didn't need to break box office records. It didn't need to set the world on fire, and it didn't need to redefine a character. It was just out there to be a fun film, and I think people are finding fun with it.
Well, this is an important test because this is essentially why they purchased this franchise to begin with, is to make these spin-offs and character spin-offs. And this is the first character spin-off that they've done. Rogue One was the first spin-off, did well, and it actually enhanced in a small little way, the trilogies as well. Or the episodes. And this one was a character one, and it did well enough, I think, for people to be at least optimistic going forward. Now, sequels, we'll see about that.
I don't think that's
I don't know if that's going to happen.
So we know that Alden is signed up for at least 3 films. So as obviously playing Han Solo. So I don't think with the box office that it's doing that we're going to get sequels to this. However, that does end in a way that would lead you to believe that it is going to end, that there is going to be a direct sequel to it. Now, it's interesting that the film was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who was also a writer on Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Force Awakens, and will be, writing the Star Wars Episode 9. So Kasdan has been doing a lot in the Star Wars universe, including having been a screenplay writer on both Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So I kind of expected a film that's being written by someone with so much Star Wars background to have been a little bit better. And it just wasn't. But I don't think that we will see a sequel to this. I think that Han Solo is going to show up in other adventures that might continue where this story left off. Specifically, we'll get into that a little bit later with the spoilers again.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
But as far as like everything goes, like I enjoy the use of practical effects that they did. I'm still really enjoying the way Disney is mixing these practical effects with the CGI. That looked great. I was not crazy about the score for this at at all. I thought the score was pretty lackluster for this one.
I didn't care for it whatsoever.
Yeah, John Powell was the composer for this. You still hear the essence of Star Wars behind it, but you really don't feel it. It never comes to light. And Michael Giacchino was the guy who did Rogue One, and he did it. I thought his score was fantastic. So others can do what John Williams does and add to this film and add to these films. But for Han Solo, it just wasn't there. Even the opening, like when they show Solo and it's zooming into the screen,
it was awkward.
Yeah, and the music's playing. I was just like, it's Star Wars-ish. It's almost like someone.
But it was very brief and cut and like underdeveloped.
Exactly.
And it felt awkward and not put together properly.
And I think that's a nice way to describe a lot of things in this film. A lot of things felt awkward. Even some of the humor was a little forced. Jon Favreau's character, Rio, the four-armed monkey, his humor was hit or miss. He was this very laughy, jokey character and stuff like that. But it nothing ever really landed. And a big problem was that Han Solo himself, his jokes didn't land.
Yeah.
In a way that kind of works because, he thinks he's the smartest, funniest guy when he steps into the room.
At least for this age.
Right. You're laughing at him. Like everyone's kind of giving him that wry eye where they're like, who's this brash son of a bitch?
And they kind of play that in. They've kind of write that in the script almost, it feels like. But in such a subtle way.
But at some point, I wanted Han Solo to really control what he's got.
Yes.
And he never did.
Never. No, especially towards the end there.
He gets his chance.
I was really disappointed. Maybe you could say at the final scene or two, but no. I really just felt like
he did use
didn't have.
At one point, he does use his smugness as his ally, like as his secret weapon, and it works out in his favor, but it very easily couldn't have.
Yeah.
he gets his chance to fly a ship, and because he talks the entire film, I want to be a pilot. I'm going to be a star pilot. Like the whole time.
Yeah.
Gets his chance. Yeah, sure. He breaks some records doing it, but he also destroys the ship pretty much. He never does anything great, and it does fit in.
We're going to get more into this in the spoiler section.
It does fit into the character with that brash machismo, but in the end, in his own movie, you wanted him to be the standout, and he wasn't.
Be a star. Yeah. And he fucking wasn't a star.
And he wasn't. I found myself watching, what's Woody Harrelson doing? Because Woody Harrelson
had a surprisingly heavy role in this movie.
He did.
Like, this was as much as his movie as it was Solo's movie. I mean, he was in this quite a bit. I did not expect this whatsoever.
But I mean, hands down, the star of this movie, the two stars are Donald Glover as Lando, which was fantastic.
He really was. I mean, we've heard about the rumblings beforehand. We wanted to see it to believe it, and he was great.
It doesn't make me excited for a Lando Solo film because I think that would be too much.
I don't think it's necessary. I like to see him again.
L3 was another standout.
Yes.
Even though what happens with her is completely predictable. I even looked at Lauren when something happened and I went, this is what's going to happen next. And then 10 minutes later in the film, it's exactly what they do. And I was like, God, it is a very beat by beat story. You can really figure it all out if you're watching.
There's no prominent writers that wrote this script.
No. And then Chewbacca is just a massive standout. I love our first meeting with him. I love the callbacks that has. And I love the relationship that he develops with Han. There is a moment there when they first meet that I'm like, nah, that doesn't jive. But after that, you get over it and you really start to enjoy their relationship and really just enjoy Chewbacca in this film.
Chewie was one of my favorite parts of the movie for sure. And I did really enjoy their first meeting, if you want to call it that, and going forward and just seeing him in action and seeing how he fights and how he controls the situation and how powerful he is.
And this, for the first time ever, is Chewbacca not being played by Peter Mayhew. This time, he was played by the guy who's replaced Peter Mayhew for the majority of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. His name is Joonas Suotama. And
he's a good-looking guy. I mean, he's like 6'10", 6'11", or something like that. He's up there. He's tall.
Finnish, and he's younger. Like he can do the things. He can move. He can shoot action scenes. I mean, he's our age. He was born in '86.
Yeah, I think he's going to be around for a long time.
Peter Mayhew is aging, and when you're that height, you're gonna have to deal with this, Jay. when you're that height and you need to move around, it's not, the knees are gonna go, and Peter Mayhew can't do the stuff anymore,
especially with that suit on.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
And like, I was listening to an interview with Junius Suetoma, and he was on Preston and Steve, our local radio show around here, and he was talking about how, like, on the set they didn't give him lines, so what he was doing was he was talking like he was talking like, I'm gonna cut all that out. He was talking in a Chewbacca voice, but in English, so people knew what he was saying and could react to it. And it's his eyes behind all the stuff, so it's his eyes doing those, doing the looks. It's his mouth doing the movements, and it's animatronics that are attached to it. So like, this guy was, while in a suit, was acting,
still acting in it, yeah.
And I think he did a fantastic job. I think like Chewbacca was one of my favorite parts of the entire film. So Jay, you ready to score this thing, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. What do you got for Solo?
I'm going to give this a B-. I think it is a rather pleasant movie. A lot of interesting action sequences that worked sometimes, some okay. I overall was pleasantly surprised by all of the performances, well-rounded, I thought, and it was just an enjoyable movie.
But there's nothing to make it
It's
outstanding.
definitely something you can't see yourself revisiting over and over again.
No.
Also, I want to quick chime in. The cinematography, very dark.
Yeah.
Very dark.
Well,
in a weird way, I kind of dug it, but at the same time, it wasn't quite perfect because you couldn't see their faces well enough in certain scenes. I liked how dark it was, but I'm like, well, at least shine a little bit more light on their faces to see the characters acting and like delivering the lines a little bit more. And that's one of the things that, I felt like I got robbed by. A little bit with that.
So I mean, it is an underground movie, right? It's the seedy belly of the smugglers and the pirates and the big baddies of the Star Wars universe. So the dark tones I was cool with. One of the big things I had a problem with was the main villain, was Paul Bettany's Dryden. There was nothing that I got from him that made him anything more than a mustache twirling villain, right? Like, they threw in like these jokes where he's like best buds with you, and then the door shuts and he goes, "What the fuck is going on?" I should fucking kill you where you stand, and I won't. Like, he's just this.
I think it's, you know why? But I feel like he was in that world because he was interacting so much with those kind of guys like Woody, like Solo, the roguish kind, the ones that are like not that authoritative, but like still smuggish enough and still kind of slimy enough to be like kind of both worlds, sort of in that kind of world. So he had a weird playfulness about him, but still a mustache twirling kind of villain aspect to him as well.
I just didn't.
I don't know.
Like, I like Paul Bettany, and I liked seeing him there, but
he was okay.
Yeah, I didn't get anything.
I liked his look,
and he wasn't even the main bad guy. We do find out that he is the lieutenant of a larger crime syndicate, the Crimson Dawn, and we do get, that's too spoilery to say who his boss is.
Yeah, we'll get into that soon.
But also, I really, and I don't know why, I just have not liked Emilia Clarke in anything other than Game of Thrones. I have never gotten a performance from her in anything else that I enjoyed.
Well, so far, the romantic comedy that I reviewed before, I liked her in, and then also this movie, I thought she was fine.
Terminator. I
never saw Terminator Genesis.
I didn't think she was fine. That moment when he's in Lando's cape closet, which is not a spoiler, but when he's in Lando's cape closet, like just watching her and her interactions with him, I got no vulnerability from her at all. And it's a moment when she's supposed to be feeling pretty vulnerable, because like here's her love, and like he's right there, and they haven't seen each other for some time, and et cetera, and they're there and they're in this closet together, and she's talking about how she's done things, she's hidden things, she has secrets, blah blah blah. And the whole time I felt like I was rolling my eyes, or I just don't believe anything that she says or anything that she does in this film. Even by the end, like I just wasn't buying any of it. I just don't like Emilia Clarke in anything other than her being Khaleesi and a mother of dragons. That's the only thing I've ever really enjoyed her in. Maybe if she was naked in this movie, I might have enjoyed her more. I was
gonna say maybe she was underneath you, but I don't know. I thought she was okay. I just thought she was okay. They tease her. It's not a spoiler. They tease her for potential movies as well.
Yep.
But other than that,
which I don't look forward to. I don't look forward to that.
I don't know if it's going to happen. I just feel like this franchise is going to kind of fizzle out.
So all these up and downs, a Han Solo movie that really does nothing for Han Solo, but the highs of having Lando, Donald Glover's Lando, and Chewbacca and Woody Harrelson's Beckett, and then the lows of Paul Bettany's villain and Emilia Clarke's portrayal of Kira. I just wind up with a B, man. It's just a solid B movie. It's fun. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't hate being at the theater seeing it.
To be honest, I gave it a B initially, and as I was talking about it, I gave it to a B minus.
Jay, I think my saving grace with the B is because of my level of Star Wars fandom. Like what really drew me in was,
well, maybe if I hear the spoilers section.
So once they started dropping,
my grade might go up back to a B.
Once they started dropping little Easter eggs and stuff like that, it piqued my interest, and then I found myself paying more attention to this movie that I very easily could have just jumped in and out of attention wise. And still gotten the same amount from it, but I paid more attention because of these little Easter eggs and stuff. So it's a perfect time. Let's head over to our spoiler discussion of the film.
Throw that warning up.
Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. All right, Jay, right away. The first thing that made me groan, I'm going to be honest with you, when Han Solo he's running from those gangsters, and he goes back to Mother Proxima, this giant worm creature, and did you notice he does a fake thermal detonator, right? Much like our drunk scene this week.
Yeah.
And he throws it through the window and she gets burned and stuff like that. Like, I wasn't crazy about their portrayal of Corellia. I wasn't crazy about even his origins. Like he's an orphan, right? But he I
didn't like it either. It was so weird.
So by the time he's escaping the Imperial blockade and he goes through and the only way to really escape without anyone noticing him is to sign up for the Empire. He wants to be a pilot. He wants to see the stars and stuff. And as he's signing up, they're like, what's your name? And he's like, Han. And like, no, who are your people? What's your last name? He's like, oh, I don't have a people. And the guy's like, fine. You're Solo, Han Solo, because you're going alone. Why can't Solo just be his fucking name? Why when he said your name, why couldn't he just say my name's Han Solo? Like, why does there have to be this little kitschy thing? Like, I felt
it makes sense in the story the way they wrote it, though.
No, it doesn't. Jay, it was just as eye rolling as in.
I mean, it's eye rolling. It was eye rolling for sure, but it worked in as far as the story that they wrote.
I guess so, but his name could have been Han Solo, just
absolutely
without having the stupid kitschy joke.
But the whole first act, I didn't like at all. Like you're talking about that. That's one of my things that I didn't like.
The first act sucked.
It sucked. It really did suck, and it was one of those things where it was so dark and so seedy and so extreme, where it's like, how are these people even remotely able to exist?
But Jay, that was just as when that Imperial officer gives him his last name, that was just as eye rolling as The Dark Knight Rises when you find out that the guy the entire time his real name is Robin.
Yeah,
you should use your real name. I really like it. Robin, and it's like, fuck, that's stupid. Oh, God. That is fucking stupid.
I'll never forget that. It's like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
That's how I felt. I was like, really? So
my mind immediately went to Christopher Nolan. I was like, Christopher Nolan, really?
Yeah, exactly.
You would do this?
So that was the one thing that really, really pissed me off. But I got over that pretty quickly. I did really enjoy the battle, that little bit of a battle that we were getting on that swamp planet, on the mud planet, and we see Han as like a mud trooper and stuff like that.
Yes.
I enjoyed that, and I really liked the callback that they had when Han goes into the pit, and it's very much like the Rancor pit in Return of the Jedi, and Chewbacca shows up. And and I knew when he went down there that was when he was going to meet Chewbacca, but I really enjoyed that moment that like Chewbacca shows up, and they have like this little fake fight and stuff like that. What I didn't like was the fact that Han Solo was like, where did he learn Wookiee? Like, why wasn't that in the beginning of this first act? Why wasn't there at least like a Wookiee friend or a Wookiee mentor or like?
I get that.
Where does a normal white man in the universe learn to speak Shri Wook, man?
Yeah. Well, that's a valid point, and to completely understand him as well.
Exactly. No, I would have been cool if he understood it. If he was just like, no, I understand Wookiee. I've been around for a while now. Like, I would have gotten that. I would have gotten it if he dropped a line and said, that he had spent some time on Kashyyyk with the Empire. I would have understood it then if he dropped a line. But I don't like the fact that he's like making these noises and Chewbacca's like, oh, you speak my language. Word. Like, yeah.
That's essentially what happened.
Yeah. And
and then all of a sudden a couple, escape fight sequences happen and they become
these are fourth wall breaking things where like
friends.
It's almost like the story like looks at you and winks and just goes, just go with it, okay? Just go with it. We're going somewhere.
Essentially what the whole film is.
Yeah. Just go with it. Don't worry about it.
Just go with it. We got this. We're Disney. We're okay.
We're getting to the part where he goes into the cantina. Don't worry. We'll get there. Maybe in part 2. So he winds up meeting Beckett there. They're there to
Dave, let me just stop right now.
It's just
let's just all admit this is the future. This could be one of the better films that they produce, Disney, going forward.
I don't think so. I think they got.
Let's think about it. They're going to be producing so many more Star Wars-esque films going forward in so many different kind of ways, whether it be the Rogue One type stuff, the stories, solo character stories, many more.
You also have Rian Johnson's own series that he's going to be doing.
Correct.
You have that.
But I'm talking, that's different to me. That's completely different to me.
His whole trilogy that's going to be coming out.
That's a whole different ballgame.
You have more Star Wars stories coming. You have episodes 9.
But when they're slightly related to the episodes, that's where I'm saying there's going to be some more underwhelming ones, I believe.
I'm sure there will be.
Coming down the pipe.
I'm sure there will be. And if a B is the worst that they get, then that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah. If this is the worst they do, that's good. But there was just so many things in that first act that really bothered me.
Yeah.
So the next, so another Easter egg that shows up at one point. Finally, Han Solo and Chewbacca escape, and they go off with Beckett to this snow planet. And one of the things I really liked, I like seeing new troopers. I like seeing new outfits. So like, I love the Death Troopers in Rogue One. I liked seeing the type of snow troopers that were on top of that train. They were cool. I liked seeing mud troopers. I even have a mud troopers hat that came with my Funko Pop Smuggler's Bounty this month. I wore it to the movie. Yeah, I like seeing that stuff. They drop a line at some point where they talk about Beckett is the one that killed Aura Singh, so he has like a little bit of street cred because he killed Aura Singh. Aura Singh is in a Phantom Menace for all of 3.5 seconds. And then she is sort of a major bounty hunter player during the Clone Wars era in the Clone Wars cartoon. You get a lot more of her. She's kind of one of the bounty hunters that helped train Boba Fett. So there is a pretty big Easter egg right there. Then they also mention that we needed muscle. And then Val says to Beckett, we could have hired Bosk. Bosk would have been muscle. Bosk is another Star Wars bounty hunter who we see in Empire Strikes Back. He is the tall lizard guy, a Trandoshan. And I play a Trandoshan on Loot Quest, which is a Star Wars RPG podcast that we do on the Podfix Network. So I like that little bit of an Easter egg there too. So there are like these little Easter eggs that are peppered about that I really enjoyed. We finally meet Lando, and we know that Han Solo, that he won the Millennium Falcon in a game of Sabacc, and you think it's going to happen right there. They do subvert your expectation. You think he's going to come in, he's going to beat him. We find out that that Lando's cheating. And everything, which fits with Lando's character completely, because he's the turncoat. He's the guy that turned Han Solo and everything in. So there are nice little callbacks, but everything you wind up really enjoying about this movie is Easter eggs and callbacks. All this stuff that is callbacks to everything else that has happened before, including some of the lines from the film, like when they're going through the Kessel Run, and we know that in The Force Awakens, she said, "You're Han Solo. You did the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs." He says 12, and then we find out that it's not quite 12. It's 12 if you round down.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a callback to that. So
Yeah,
you really need to be a person to get these like little enjoyment things out of it. You have to really pay attention to the Star Wars universe and be someone who loves the Star Wars universe. This is the most fan-serviced Star Wars film ever. And I feel like once they got like this film written out, they decided to throw this stuff into the script to be like, we need to put something in there to really draw, to get our fans behind it.
Right.
Like they mentioned that
Happy at least, or at least pleasantly surprised.
Amelia Clark's Kira mentions that she is a master of Terakasi. Jay, there was a PlayStation 1 game that was a Star Wars Mortal Kombat-esque video game that was called Star Wars and the Masters of Terakasi. It is lauded as one of the worst Star Wars games ever made. But it gets a reference and a nod here because a real Star Wars fan would look at another real Star Wars fan and go, they talked about it.
They're trying to bring their revenue back up.
And that's what I mean. So much of this,
she has one fight sequence, one only, and the one that she did was harshly edited. It was like all of a sudden it was like, wow.
A lot of the fight scenes were
done.
The gunfight that was going on Kessel, that was harshly edited. The only one who ever got like really cool fight scenes that got like a nice like build up was Chewbacca. When he
Chewie was fucking balls out, so sick.
For the first time ever in a Star Wars film, it's been talked about. We know that Wookiees don't like to lose, and we know that Wookiees have been known to rip arms off of people when they're upset. We finally get it.
Fuck.
I cracked up at that moment when Chewbacca rips the guy's arms off and the guy falls down and Han's just like, that's the uniform I needed. Yeah. It would have fit perfectly too.
Right. That was pretty good. That was great.
I love that part. But that came as service of Chewie, not in service of Han. Right. We see Chewbacca playing Djarik or playing hollow chess with Beckett. And Beckett's talking about, how to think ahead. We see that Chewbacca was never good at hollow chess. He just scares the shit out of you into losing to him so he doesn't rip your fucking arms off.
Right. Yeah, because that, they're upset to, lose, and you don't want to lose to them. And
one of the parts that I really hated, I really disliked, was this squid whale monster inside the maelstrom that was the electrical storm around Kessel.
Yes.
I hated that thing.
I despised it, and I was shocked that they had such a shitty CGI creature thing.
The CGI
supposedly ran the city.
It didn't look shitty. It was just that its presence there. First off, it's meant to be reminiscent
for the opening act. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, it's like, really? Like,
it wasn't the opening act. That was the second act. That was the end of the second act. Was them getting through Kessel. Was them getting out of Kessel.
That fucking water thing that came out?
I'm not talking about the water thing, Jay. I'm talking about inside when they going through the storm and he sets the coordinates for Kessel and he gets through Kessel, which has previously only been done in 20 parsecs. He leaves the spice mines with everybody and he navigates his way through. This is after the mine, after everyone escapes and L3 leads her rebellion.
Oh,
that squid monster.
Oh, the squid monster. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Yes, that was very long.
I was like, because you're talking about
very long.
You're talking about Proxima in the beginning of the film.
I'm talking about Proxima. I didn't like her.
She was actually practical effects mixed with CGI effects.
Really?
Yeah. Not all CGI, buddy.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a big fan of it either.
But either way, that scene was long, very long, and it was something that was not the greatest pulled off. And
there's only one thing in that I really liked. It's when Beckett put the fuel and injected it like nitrous into the engine, kind of like Mad Max as they're spitting like fumes into kind of like that. And the Millennium Falcon pitters out and goes pew, 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 pew. It's the same exact Millennium Falcon sound when the hyperdrive doesn't work when they're trying to escape the Empire, or and then all of a sudden it kicks in. Right, exactly. And I did really enjoy that. But the monster, it just made, you could have very easily have just had Han, who was trying to navigate out of the Kessel Maelstrom, gone directly towards that black hole. And that could have been the thing that he had to escape, was the black hole. And then he could have...
You didn't need an octopus.
You didn't need an octopus monster. He could have... He could have jettisoned the escape pod that Lando added.
Yeah.
And just been like, oh, we need to reduce weight. And that would have worked. That would have worked.
You didn't need to spend that $15 million on that fucking thing.
You did not need to spend that money on that stupid fucking monster.
And it was in there a lot.
But that monster may be an Easter egg, Jay. That monster may be the same monsters that come to Ezra's aid at the end of Star Wars Rebels, which means absolutely nothing to you. But that monster itself may be capable of faster than light travel. So it looked like
surprising.
It looked like one of those that was in Star Wars Rebels. If you watch Star Wars Rebels, you know what I'm talking about with the very last episode of it. But yeah, that whole sequence with Kessel, I wanted Kessel to knock my fucking socks off, because it's the one thing that Han Solo always mentions, where it's just like, who are you? And he's like, hey, I'm Han Solo, pilot, captain of the Millennium Falcon, the one that made the Kessel Run in 12. You want the thing that he uses to define himself to be a character defining moment. And to me, it didn't feel like it. It didn't feel like a character defining moment for him where it should have been. And to me, it felt like it was something he bumbled his way through, just like he bumbles his way through anything else. I wanted him to have, because he has so much confidence, I wanted him to have one thing to be like, I may suck at negotiation, I may suck at fighting, I may even suck at,
But isn't that fitting for the character,
at shooting my gun? But I can fly a fucking ship better than anybody else and shut your mouth, because that's the only thing that I can do well. So I'm going to brag about it. But he didn't even do that well. He Barney Fifed his way through that like he did everything else.
It's his character, man.
It's very cartoonish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you have a main character, you want him to do something that is
That's the problem with this movie, Dave, is they didn't do it well. They didn't do his character well, at least. They did all the other characters fine. Better, I would say, overall. For the most part, for what they fleshed out, for what they were.
I mean, it's because...
But as the title character, Han Solo, Dave,
it's because his two character-defining moments happened already. They happened at the end of A New Hope when he returned and helped Luke blow up the Death Star. And they happened when he sacrificed himself to the Empire and was frozen in carbonite and lost forever. Because if you watch Return of the Jedi, Han Solo again has nothing to do. His sacrificial story has come full circle. He's been resurrected, and now he's got nothing to do except be a love interest to Leia. That's it. Except be the foil to Luke in that love triangle. And that's it. That's all. That's the only thing he has to do in Return of the Jedi. Because he had already completed his arc. This is the beginning of his arc. So there is no resolution to it. There is no character defining moment, which winds up being pretty weak. All right, so I'm going to skip a lot of other Easter eggs that I noticed throughout the film, and I'm just going to go to the real big one, to the one that probably confused the shit out of Jay and anybody else who hasn't watched Star Wars Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels television series. At the very end, after Dryden gets killed by Kira and Han Solo escapes with the hyperdrive fuel, and he gives it to the bad guys, Jay.
Yeah. Who
you find out aren't the bad guys. They're starting a rebellion, and they're starting by fighting the underworld. And so there's a character that you see in the swoop bikes.
The girl.
Right. So she's not the Easter egg. The Easter egg is the guy that's standing next to her with the two tubes coming out of his face.
But who's the girl?
She's nobody.
That's the most disappointing thing about it.
I mean, she might have a greater part in the Star Wars universe that I'm not aware of.
Like, why hype up this girl who has an interesting look, and she's the one that kind of like is like the ringleader and starts off the whole thing of it all? That's so so surprising about the rebellion.
Well, Jay, I mean, she's just Enfys Nest. I mean, that's who she is. She is starting her own rebellion, but it's not really her that's that interesting. It's who's standing to the right of her.
Who's that?
It's a guy, and you see him, and he should look familiar to you. He was in Rogue One. He has two tubes sticking out of his face, and his name is Two Tubes. And you saw him in Rogue One as a member of Saw Gerrera's branch of the rebellion. Save the rebellion. Save the dream. So you see him standing there. Han Solo winds up giving what essentially is millions of dollars to start the rebellion. To start at least Saw Gerrera's arm of the rebellion, start a portion of the rebellion.
Yeah.
So without even knowing it, Han Solo winds up becoming he sacrifices everything for a cause that he doesn't even believe in yet.
Right. They isn't even fully aware of yet.
Right.
And doesn't even know the magnitude of it all. And then hence the forward of this universe.
Yeah. I liked the characters of Enfys Nest. I liked that turn in it. Like, I liked that little turn in the story.
It was a good turn.
I will say this: the third act was probably the strongest. With all that, Enfys Nest is actually a good guy, right? She's going up against the Crimson Dawn. Han doesn't like the Crimson Dawn because it's imprisoned Kira. Kira is a wild card who Beckett has been telling Han not to trust the entire time. Han didn't trust Beckett, but maybe he could have trusted Beckett. Han shoots first and kills Beckett.
He does. And Beckett was a great character. I really thought that.
And Beckett even announces, "I'm proud of you." Like, he was proud of him at the end.
Yeah.
You shot me.
Why wouldn't he?
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, exactly.
You might make it in this world.
It's fitting. It's fitting for the characters.
Kira ultimately turns on Han, and then she kind of calls her true master. And Jay, this is where I thought you and everyone else was going to be really confused.
I wasn't confused. I knew he was a villain in the prequels.
Okay. So when the hologram first shows up, when Kira calls the leader of Crimson Dawn, the hologram first shows up, I saw mechanical legs, and I looked at Lauren and I went, "It's Darth Maul." And she's like, "It's not Darth Maul. Darth Maul's dead." And I was like, Darth Maul is not dead. And then, so he takes off the hood and reveals that he's Darth Maul. Now, he is played by two people in this role. Yeah. He is played by Ray Parker, who originally portrayed him in The Phantom Menace, and he is voiced by Sam Witwer, who has voiced him on both Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. So he takes off the hood and reveals that Darth Maul is the leader of Crimson Dawn. Now, if everybody gets really confused because they saw that motherfucker get chopped in half, fall down a ventilation shaft, and Obi-Wan walked away victorious, thus training Anakin Skywalker and making the ultimate baddie, why is that guy standing there? There's a whole bunch of episodes of Clone Wars that you need to watch. His brother from Dathomir, and they do mention that she was calling Dathomir where he was. His brother from Dathomir, Savage Press, goes to a junk planet, finds his brother, Darth Maul, brings him back to Dathomir, has the witches of Dathomir fix his legs. They go on a crusade to basically take over the underworld of Star Wars. They are the ones that wind up putting this whole alliance together between 5 different criminal families: the Hutts, the Pikes, the Prince Xizor, and the Black Sun. Like, they put this whole thing together, and we see Pikes on Kessel, which were also part of the cartoon. And we see him build this criminal empire, and he even kills the military leader of Mandalore in Pre Vizsla, who was the leader of the Death Watch, and he basically leads the Mandalorians now as well. And then we eventually, at some point, he comes back in front of Darth Sidious, who is the Emperor, and he begs the Emperor to take him back under his wing, and the Emperor says, "No, I have a new apprentice and another plan," which eventually is Anakin Skywalker. He says, "But I still have a use for you." And the use for him is for him to continue running the underground. Now, at some point, he will lose the underground, Darth Maul, and this is big spoilers for Star Wars Rebels, so if you haven't seen it, or if you want to know more, you can go check out my final episode of A Certain Point of View on the Podfix Presents channel. He loses his hold or his grip on the underground, and he winds up finding a young Padawan by the name of Ezra and trying to turn him to the dark side. When that fails, he winds up just kind of being this old Sith, just wandering the galaxy, not really knowing what to do with himself. And he feels a presence, Jay. A presence that brings him to Tatooine. And when he goes to Tatooine, he finds an old man sitting by a fire who was expecting him. And that man takes off his hood and reveals that he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And they have a lightsaber fight that ends like that. And Darth Maul is dead again. Obi-Wan kills him in 3 fucking seconds. And everybody was so upset that Darth Maul was killed so easily. But if you remember, Obi-Wan was a master Jedi at that point. He was one of the strongest Jedis that had ever existed. And Darth Maul hasn't progressed himself since the end of Phantom Menace.
So it does make sense.
It does make sense. He is out there, and
But in a cinematic way, it was underwhelming.
For years, he has been back in the Star Wars universe. There's comics, there's cartoons, there's all this stuff, and people in the know that he is alive. For people who are just go see the movies, they were just kind of shocked and surprised. But it's really cool because he is holding the new type of lightsaber that he has in those other versions of himself that are in the cartoons and stuff. He's dressed that way, and he is leading a criminal empire. It's very strange. It's very interesting, but at the same time, it is underwhelming. You're right. It is because what can they do with that character now? When we already, again, just like Han Solo, we know how he ends. We know where everybody ends up in this. We know, I know where Darth Maul ends too.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that it has to be some kind of untold story, some kind of secret story, some kind of thing.
At the very end, right? We know that Han Solo says, and Beckett was talking about going to Tatooine and hooking up with a new crime lord who is putting together a crew. Beckett's dead, and Han Solo decides, well, let's go find out what's good there. Let's go make some money. And it ends with him pretty much taking the Millennium Falcon, which he finally did win in a sabacc game against Lando. And Lando looks fucking dope in that Hawaiian shirt.
He's just dope in general.
And they're going off to Tatooine, which again leads you to think, so Kira is going to meet her master, Darth Maul, and Han is off to Tatooine to meet with Jabba. You know, you think this is all setting you up for a sequel, but is it, Jay? Is this setting you up for a sequel, or could this all just be setting you up for Han to go to Tatooine and meet Boba Fett, and the Boba Fett solo film winds up being the sequel to this film? That's where Alden Ehrenreich could again come back in. Because we know the story from here. He goes, he works for Jabba, he's a smuggler, he dumps a shipment before getting boarded by the Empire, gets a price on his head, winds up having to pay Jabba back, winds up taking a job from an old Jedi and a young blonde-haired kid from Tatooine, and his story is written from that point on.
It makes sense, Dave. It really does.
And
why not be able to have this character's involved with this property?
Knowing that he's going to Tatooine is the end of this, is the end of Han Solo. You don't need to come back for a sequel because you can continue it with Boba Fett, and Boba Fett's ties to the underworld can continue Darth Maul and Kira's stuff.
Yep.
That's the way they should do it.
I think you're right. I think it's kind of the only way.
At
least the way they set it up as.
Don't do a Han Solo too. So that was crazy long and only really interesting if you are a huge fan of Star Wars or you don't really care to watch the cartoon stuff and you were wondering how did Darth Maul get here and what the fuck is going on.
So thank you, Dave, for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome, man. But I think James Mangold would probably service the rest of this story better than Ron Howard, man. Ron Howard's a great shooter.
Yeah, but he's a shooter anymore.
And he tells a fun story. But other than that, man, it's not that big of a
Mangold has more of an interesting take on certain things, and obviously he is a fan. He's going to be writing and directing it, and hopefully it comes out and pans out well. He could easily tie in the Han Solo storyline with it. Hopefully he does. I think it'll be a little bit more interesting than having a sequel to Han Solo, especially since the box office is a little underwhelming.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for Super Movie Brothers tonight. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you're enjoying the show, please go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. It's how we get noticed more. It's how more people can find us. It's how people can check us out and say, hey, this show's pretty good. People enjoy it. I should enjoy it too.
Do it.
Make sure you head over to www.4hangovers.com and use your promo code SMBFish to get yourself 15% off for your blowfish hangover cure. Me and Jay have been longtime users of it, and it's worked pretty well for us so far. Also, make sure you're checking out the rest of the shows on the Podfix Network. That's www.podfixnetwork.com. You can check us out there. You can also check out all of our Podfix brothers and their shows and links to where you can find them. And you can also check out our movie cocktail recipes up there. Jay will be coming back next week with a brand new recipe for Masters of the Universe, as we are joined by Rob from the Fan Film Boys and Mark of Cult Movie Cult to discuss that beautiful film from 1987. I want to thank everybody for listening. Have a great night, and cheers.
Cheers.